Hello everyone and welcome to another video, and I'm going to be doing another one of these ranking style videos where I either rank liveries or do track tier lists. So I guess this is the third video in this series, and last time out I did the top 10 best F1 liveries of all time, and this time I'm going to be doing the top 10 worst F1 liveries of all time. So basically the exact opposite. Now, just a disclaimer, obviously this is just my opinion, so if you disagree with anything, that is absolutely fine, and if you agree with me, then that's great, but please do not say that I'm a moron for having this livery on the list or not having this livery on the list. You can kindly debate with me in the comments. This is all meant to be fun discussion. But yeah, these 10 liveries are honestly just really ugly, and that is why they're all on the list. But let's get into it now. We're going to start with number 10, and it is the 2017 McLaren MCL 32, I believe. This is called the MCL 32, I think it is. Anyway, yeah, this was the last of the McLaren Honda cars, of the second coming of McLaren Honda, I guess you could say. Obviously they had their period in the late 80s, early 90s where they were very successful, and McLaren and Honda thought, you know what, let's try this again in the hybrid era, 2015, 2016, 2017, and unfortunately it was a lot worse. They did not win anything, they didn't even score a single podium, and they barely managed to score points. I don't believe they finished in the top 5 in the constructors at any point in this revived partnership, which was shortly lived. And this was the last of the Honda powered McLarens. And yeah, the livery, obviously, for me, it just reflects the performance. I mean, it really looks like a back marker. You can tell it's a slow car just by the way the livery is designed. I mean, first of all, the shade of orange, it's a bit too dark. It's not the right shade. It's not, historically, it's not the right shade. It's not the papaya that is now on the last two McLarens. But that's not the main problem, really. The main problem is the design. I mean, what's with these weird swooshes everywhere? Like, can't they? I feel like it has too much black on it and not enough orange, and this weird white stripe as well, and also the white stripes outlining. It just makes the car look really cheap and really tacky. I just feel if they get rid of the white everywhere, not just there, but also there, here, around the orange, get rid of that and make the orange a bit more prominent. I guess paint this little bit orange as well, and just paint the engine cover orange. It would be a lot better, but unfortunately it really looks like a back marker and not a top team. It looks like this car was built in a shed rather than the McLaren Technology Center. So yeah, this has to be the worst McLaren livery in F1 history without a shadow of a doubt. But in my opinion, it's only the 10th worst, as we come on to number 9, and it is the Sauber Petronas liveries. Pretty much all of them, well, not all of them, but most, especially like the early 2000s Sauber Petronas liveries from, I'd say, about 2002 to about 2005, somewhere around there. I think this color combination is disgusting. I mean, the blue is nice. The teal is a bit dull. The yellow does not fit at all. This yellow barge board does not fit. If they'd done, I don't know, blue and white, like this blue and this white here, that would have looked quite good. But unfortunately, they went with this mismatch of colors, and it just looks like something designed by a child using crayons. It's quite disgusting, if you ask me. I mean, yeah, Petronas liveries in recent years are a lot less colourful because now they sponsor Mercedes. But yeah, back at Sauber, it's quite funny that Sauber was sponsored by Red Bull and Petronas, which they're now, I guess Red Bull is their own team and Petronas sponsors Red Bull's main rival, I guess you could say. So it's quite weird to see them on the same car, but yeah. This is a really odd color combination, and I definitely don't miss it. I much prefer the livery that replaced this, the BMW Sauber, which looks much more professional than this uh, really hideous collection of colors. It's quite bad if you ask me. Anyway, that is my ninth worst. Now the eighth worst is the MasterCard Lola, which I believe is a very shortly lived project in the mid 90s, and again, same reasons for why I dislike this. This is it's a very odd mishmash of colors. The blue is fine, the white is orange does not go with blue and white, and neither does red. Take the red out, take the orange out, and make this Penzeo logo, larger, because it just looks weird how small it is. And the front wing is just it reminds you of the Winfield Williams kind of shade of red and the orange outline there. And that livery is also on this list, by the way. But yeah, it looks again. It looks like it was designed by a child using crayons. The colors just do not go well together at all. So definitely one of the worst in my opinion. But the next worst, seventh, is the 1999 BAR, which is a very popular choice when it comes to what is the worst livery of all time. Now, I was debating on whether to put this livery on the list or not, because for a while I was like, okay, the execution isn't great, but I do think the idea, the concept, is very good. I think it's very interesting, it's very creative, it's very different. No other F1 team, I don't think, has ever had one side of their car a completely different livery to the other side. If they had refined it a bit, this could have been an all-time classic, but unfortunately, it's a bit of a mess the way they've done it. This kind of zip running along the middle of the nose is... I think they should get rid of that. I think the whole half, one side, the other side thing should continue across the whole nose rather than end here. And I also think this rear wing should have the white livery on this side and the blue on that side. If they refined it a bit, it would have actually been quite a fun livery, quite a funny livery, Would have been, a good livery, I think. But unfortunately, the way they've executed it is a bit wrong, and because of that, it's a bit of a mess, really. Funny thing though, this car was released on launch in two different liveries. Initially, the plan was to have one car in the 555 livery and one car in the Lucky Strike livery. And I have to say, both of these liveries individually were really nice. Like, they honestly had the potential to become all-time classics. Like, the BAR liveries that follow this livery were nowhere near as good as the BAR kind of Lucky Strike livery you see on the side here. I really like the red wings kind of pattern here. I think it's really vibrant and fun, and the BARs after this, for whatever reason, didn't follow that design. They were quite boring in comparison, but this is on that list rather than them because it's a bit of a mess if you ask me. But it definitely gets points for being, they tried to do something different, and I can appreciate that. That's why it's not in my top 5 worst. And even though it's on the worst series of all time list, it does have a place in my heart, to be honest with you. Even though it's quite bad, it's quite ugly, but yeah. It's reluctantly on my worst series of all time list. So there you go, you happy now? Anyway, the 6th worst, and definitely the worst Ferrari livery in F1 history for me, is the 2016 Ferrari SF16-H. This car was as ugly as it was lacking in performance. I mean, this car did not win any race in the 2016 season and finished miles behind Mercedes and Red Bull, but that's not the reason why I dislike this, obviously. The livery's a mess. It really is a mess. I mean, first of all, there's far too much white on this car. I mean, I said in my top 10 best F1 liveries of all time video that white does not belong on a Ferrari. in my opinion. Like, I much prefer my Ferraris to be fully red or nearly fully red. This has too much white. Like, for me, you know, a Ferrari should be, let's say, 95% red at least. And maybe if you want to be 5% black or 5% white, whatever. This to me looks like 75% red and 25% white, and that is not okay. Because the white and the red do not go well together. But that's not really the main reason why I hate this livery. That is the second biggest reason. But the biggest reason why I hate this livery is that engine cover is an absolute mess. I don't know who thought this was a good design. It looks like it was designed in Microsoft Paint or something. Well, not Microsoft Paint, like quickly put together in Photoshop with amateurish skill, really. First of all, the Ferrari logo, this Marlboro looking logo, which really should have been banned because it's clearly subliminal advertising. It's a hideous logo in itself, but it's overlapping this red. It's coming from the white and overlapping onto the red. First of all, that is a very tacky arrangement there. If they wanted the logo there, and if they wanted this design, they should have made this logo smaller just to fit into the white. It really looks messy overlapping onto red there. Also, if they want to go with white, why don't they just make the whole engine cover white? I just think this black stripe here is a very uneven looking stripe and it's weirdly shaped. And it just looks like a botch job. It looks like someone's had plastic surgery to their nose and it's just a complete botch job here. This design is completely amateurish. They should, where I'm moving my mouse, have a clear line here, a smooth, clear, consistent line. Here's the white, and then beyond this line it's the red. They should not have this black, uneven looking stripe running between the white and the red. It just looks ridiculous. Like, it's such a mess, this engine cover area. It really is a mess. And if you just hid the engine cover, I could understand why one would like the livery, but this it's a mess, and it's easily the worst Ferrari livery ever. Just because the way it's arranged, the overlapping here, the uneven black line, it should be a clear, you know, there shouldn't be a gap between the red and the white, basically. They should just neaten it out a lot more. It's a mess. But that's not the worst. There are some worse than that, and here is the fifth worst, and it is the ING Renault livery. And I'm gonna include 2007 and 2008 in this, even though the car pictured is 2009, and the 2009 livery was slightly different to the 2008 and 2007 livery. But you know, they use essentially the same color palette, and the colors used are really, really disgusting. I mean, okay, the white is fine, albeit a bit boring, but it's fine. The yellow, if it wasn't for the orange, would be fine. But yellow and orange looks like someone has puked all over the car. Or it looks like, you know, an omelette-coloured car. And it just looks really, really disgusting to me. And it's a mess. I mean, you got orange here, you got red there, orange, red, yellow, orange. It's a really unappealing color palette, and I will go into 2007 and 2008 because I'm also including this on this list. Yeah, the blue on those liveries also did not work with the yellow orange. The yellow and orange just looks really bizarre to me. And if I was designing this livery, I would have a predominantly orange. You know, ING is the title sponsor, fair enough, you can have your orange, okay? Get rid of the yellow, make the car much more orange, and maybe a few white accents. Would it be nice? But unfortunately, they went with this hideous, you know, livery, and definitely one of my. It's probably the worst. It's the worst Renault livery of all time. The whole ING era. The ING era obviously is also quite infamous, you know, era that, you know, I'm sure the people who work for Renault want to forget, because obviously the Crashgate scandal, the ING livery was, well, the center of that, really. their cars, the Renault cars, were painted in ING colours when Piquet decided to deliberately crash into the water, help his teammate win. So yeah, definitely a livery that I do not want to see ever again. But there's one that's got a similar colour palette to this and is even worse, and it is the 1999 Williams. And I've also chosen this picture in particular because it's also beside the 1998 Williams, which I also think is quite bad, but I think the 1999 is worse because, first of all, Williams cars should not be red. Red Williams cars just look really wrong to me. Like when you think of Williams, you think of blue, you think of white. You do not think of red. So that is an instant red flag. Second of all, the shade of red used is hideous. It looks like a kind of tomato shade of red. It's not a nice shade of red at all. Thirdly, I really hate the fact that it's blended, these yellow or orange rather, patterns have been blended into the red, and it just looks like the car is either rusting or someone just splattered some paint, or someone maybe vomited on this car. It looks like someone's vomited all over this car, just went and went all over this car. It just looks disgusting. And this actually used to be my least favorite livery of all time, but I've done some research since in recent years, and it's no longer my least favorite, but the colors used are so bad. They do not work together at all. And it's easily the worst Williams livery ever. But we're on to the top three now. The third worst F1 livery of all time is the 1979 Shadow. And, well, you can see for yourself why I hate this livery. What on earth is that disgusting lion pattern on the front? God, that is an abomination. Like, it does not fit with the rest of the livery at all. Like, honestly, if you removed this really quite gopping lion pattern, I guess, if you removed that, it wouldn't look too bad, because I do like the dark blue. Or is that black? I can't tell. I think it's dark blue. I do like that. That suits the car. But this lion pattern, I guess you can tell it's a car from the 1970s, can't you? Because that is 1970s design right there. The 1979 Shadow is not an appealing livery in the slightest. But there is another livery that is actually the worst on my list, and it reminds me of this. It's very similar in terms of concept to this. I won't go into that yet. Some of you might already know because I've given a bit of a hint there. But the second worst livery of all time is the 2004 Minardi. Now, Minardi is a team that gets a lot of love, and I don't really understand why. Because all they did in their time in Formula 1 is build absolute shitboxes and didn't achieve anything. And I guess, watching onboard footage of this car is quite exciting because this car handles like an absolute pig. It has no balance at all. There's oversteer, understeer, the lot. But even worse than that is this livery, which is a god-awful mess. Okay, I know Minardi's a very poor team. I mean, okay, I say poor. Obviously, they still have millions to spend. But for an F1 team, F1 standards, it was very much lacking in funds. But okay, I understand why they've plastered logos all over this livery, because obviously they need as much money as possible. They need money to keep themselves going. They need sponsors so that these sponsors pay the money to get advertised in the car. I get that, but the way it's all been arranged, it could have done this in a much better way. It just looks an absolute mess, and easily the messiest livery on the list. I mean, green engine cover, black end plates, black barge boards, black wings, and you got white, and you got red outline. I mean, there's too much colours going on. And these sponsors are placed in really weird places, and they're not colour coded or anything. They're literally just in their own colours, and it's a real mess. And I was tempted to put this as worst livery ever, but I found one which is worse than this. Despite this being an absolute mess, I can understand why Minardi did it. As I said, their report were poor. For an F1 team, they had a lack of money. They needed as many sponsors as possible to keep the team funded. But the way this livery is, it's just an utter mess, if you ask me. The worst F1 livery of all time is the 1976 Hesketh. And you can probably tell why. Whose idea was it to plaster a picture, well, not a picture, an illustration of a woman on the front of it? I mean, seriously, what the hell is that? Whose idea was that? That is the cheesiest, cringiest thing I've ever seen on an F1 car in my life. Just for that alone, it deserves to be the worst F1 livery of all time. I mean, you're not impressing anyone. Like, yeah, sure, put a half-naked lady on the front of your car. You're not impressing anyone. It's a horrid, horrid thing to put on the front of a car. Goodness me. Was this James Hunt's idea or something? Because I know he used to drive for Hesketh, but was this his idea? Because it's a very cheesy, cringy, distasteful thing. I mean, gosh. Again, you could tell this is a 1970s design, can't you? So there we have it. That is my 10 worst F1 liveries of all time. And there were a couple of liveries that I thought about putting on this list. For example, the 2011 Sauber, which for me is one of the most boring liveries I've ever seen. Not ugly, just incredibly boring. But I decided to put the Sauber Petronas livery on there instead because that was just plain ugly. So yeah, but on another day I could have put the 2011 Sauber. And yeah, that is my top 10 worst liveries of all time. And I hope you enjoyed this video because I had a lot of fun recording it, putting it together, and I enjoy going, taking a trip down Formula 1 memory lane. I'm particularly interested in livery design. I really am interested in the way cars look and what the liveries are like, and after doing the top 10 best, I really enjoy that. I thought I'd do a top 10 worst, and those are my top 10 worst liveries of all time in Formula 1, in my opinion. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I might actually do underrated and overrated liveries videos as well, because there are some liveries that I feel get too much credit, and also liveries that don't get enough. So I will definitely do those two in, well, whenever really. I've got plenty of time. I'm in quarantine still, so I'll get around to that at some point. But yeah, until next time, guys, take care, stay safe, don't get COVID-19, and bye.